Matthew wanted one, I know.
I'll take one, Sarah, if no
You
one
know
else
I
needs
won't.
it.
No, you take
Were
it.
you gonna take, you're leaving the
No,
meeting.
she went to go get another one.
No, that's
Oh,
proper.
That's it.
Hello,
That's
me.
it.
Thank you.
I'm good.
You need to use the restroom. Yep.
I got it.
You investigated you. Okay.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks that its citizens to conduct themselves in the same courteous towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rules of Order will be used to conduct the meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence at each meeting held at a school site, the board will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruptions of the meeting. All right, this moment, we'll take a moment of silence. All right, Mr. Superintendent, do we have any recognitions tonight?
We do not.
All right. All right, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just that is with the understanding of a closed session at the end of the meeting. Right,
Correct.
yeah.
All right, with that, we do not have any public comments tonight, but we do appreciate everyone attending tonight. With that, we'll start with board reports. We'll start with Hillary.
Okay. Just wanted to mention that the year got off to a bumpy start in some ways. And that I just really wanted to thank staff for working so hard and putting in some long hours as we wrestled through some issues. And I'm just grateful to the dedication all of you showed our kids. I went to the first School Health Advisory Council meeting this morning. Chair Atherton asked me to serve on that again this year.
Thank you.
And it is my pleasure to represent the board there. And then finally, I just wanted to say that at the last meeting, we didn't have board comments. So I wanted to also acknowledge how traumatizing seeing members of the KKK on our street corners 2 blocks away were to a lot of families in Hillsborough. And just wanted to personally denounce white nationalism. And I'm hopeful that this board will work towards a resolution of that nature. So that's it for me tonight.
Dr. Alkiotis.
Just a couple of things. I responded back to you on your second request for representation for this board on the county's Earth-Friendly Committee or whatever that is, so we can possibly access some monies.
Yes.
So I did that out of my sense of duty, since you asked
I
for it.
appreciate that.
Okay. Last week was one of the nicest moments I had. It was Grandparents' Day at Hillsborough Elementary School. There were some grandparents and parents who are here tonight. I will not disclose who they are. But it was a wonderful opportunity to see little kids actually stopping with their parents and their teachers to honor grandparents, which my personal opinion is that's been kind of lost in our society. And it was just very heartwarming to participate in that, and the teachers, and I wanted to praise the staff. The office staff at Hillsborough Elementary School is one of the most ebullient office staffs we have. They're always bouncing around, they're friendly, they're joyous. And unless I stop in there, even though I wear my school ID tag, it would not be a complete visit not to go by and pay homage to the office staff. Because they give respect, and somebody gives respect that much, it needs to be heralded and broadcast widely. So if there's anybody, I know there's several HES parents here tonight, please, and grandparents and parents, take that message back, how much they really welcome people who come into that school. And it's not a building. It's a staff inside the building and parents and kids that habitat that particular facility. And it was important to go there last week because the little guy I went to see had lost his other grandfather 3 days earlier. So in that kind of tragedy, we all have to pull together to help little kids get through that, because it's one of the most difficult things for young people to understand. So thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Sarah?
So since our last round of updates, I attended the Cedar Ridge groundbreaking with a number of other board members.
Oh, yeah.
As well as the school district kickoff for staff, which was wonderful. So did Dr. Udis and Kinsey and Stevens and they'll share because they haven't heard yet. I also had the opportunity to go through the laptop pickup process for the first time as a parent, and it was very smooth and fast and everything. So thank you, Mr. Jones, for your team, and Ms. Rath for your team. It was fast and easy, and I imagine very complicated with a lot of people. Last weekend, I went to the March for a Hate-Free Hillsborough, and I'm so pleased to see organizers and speakers from that here tonight. Thank you for being here. I saw a lot of Orange County parents and students there being on King Street and seeing people. I was sort of in the middle and seeing people as far as I could see in both directions. Coming together in that way was really powerful, very heartening. And I just hope that that spirit continues to move us as we work towards a more equitable school system and a more inclusive community. And then this past week, we had our first meeting of the Student Achievement Committee. Thank you for everyone who came with some, I thought, really important updates and discussion from Ms. Woodson, from Dr. Keeling, about the discipline data, about the equity efforts, since Dr. Keeling has come, as well as how we're spending some of the money for exceptional children programs and supplemental literacy. So a lot of good stuff there. I don't see the materials up in Assembly yet, so I would ask that we get those up there somehow, so that the rest of the board can see those as well, because I think it's all really meaty and good information.
All right.
I'll
Mr.
be
Roberts?
quick. I had the opportunity to visit 3 of our schools the past 2 weeks, and impressed at the startup at all 3 of them, particularly the effort that Orange High was working towards working out schedules that weren't perfect at the beginning of the year. They've got them worked out now from the feedback I'm getting. The most important thing on that was I didn't realize how old I'd gotten. Seeing the children, I knew it in elementary school, but I didn't know it in high school.
All right, I attended the first student achievement meeting as well. We talked about data. I didn't respond to the request to have the one-on-ones. And my reason is I believe that, I'd like to hear what fellow board members are asking, or even what their input might be, because I learned from that. So I prefer the board hearing data together. We're splintered enough as it is. I went to the kickoff. It was very energetic, and I thank Orange County Schools for that cool 13 shirt. Usually I don't like the number 13, but I thought it was a really cool 13 shirt. I also attended the appreciation event for our bus drivers. It was well attended, and I can't remember if I mentioned it earlier. And I went to the North Carolina Women Breaking Barriers, and that was a very important event, very important. And had an opportunity to talk to Chief Justice Beasley, and she wants to have a conversation about student partnership, whatever, and I'm gonna do that. That'll be good for me and good for Orange County Schools. Thank you, Ms. Atherton.
Mr. McKnight?
No report.
All right, I just have a few items. So, also attended the groundbreaking. It was nice to see a lot of our elected officials to come out and support our schools. The back to school kickoff event, agree, it was wonderful. There was lots of energies. You know, I appreciate all the staff and not mentioned often, the staff that comes there way before we get there. And I was there way after, and they were tearing it down, so we appreciate all that work that the operations team puts into that and the facilities. As Ms. Stevens mentioned, the bus driver appreciation, it's wonderful that the sheriff gives such a give back to the community, handles that every year. It was well planned, well thought out, lots of great words of encouragement. And also I appreciated the state troopers for their support, telling the bus drivers, hey, we will follow you, but we're not after you. We will like to ride buses to catch people who are running, you know, bus stop signs. So very encouraged to hear that, because that is so dangerous, and we hear about those every year. I also got to attend the laptop rollout, and definitely appreciate how well organized, as mentioned earlier, all the different stations for problem resolutions, and people get in and out quick. I also was able to attend the Million Father March. That's an event where the first day of school, dads go in and welcome the staff, the kids, parents, lots of high fives, many hugs. Some kids were not ready, but you know, they definitely went in with a smile. The couple other things, the CT newsletter, definitely appreciate that coming to the board, so we're updated on that. Also, the EC newsletter, which is new, that was wonderful to learn about all the different activities going on. And to just point out, as Hillary requested, there will be a resolution coming in support. Last item I'll just mention, just for information for everyone, is that the board is moving forward with its second round of interviews for superintendent, and we're very excited as we move forward. With that, turn it over to superintendent.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just a couple of things. As board member McKenzie had mentioned, we had a few issues in the district, but worked through those, and appreciate staff's effort with that. And moving about the schools and watching the teaching and learning process to occur. And I don't want you to lose sight that well over the majority of things that are happening in our school district are very positive, very good. We need to spend time talking about those. The 10-day attendance for the projections from the state was, for Orange County Schools, was 7,388 students. As of the 10th day, which is today, we had 7,377, so close enough to not have the state trying to recoup positions of resources from us. Comparative to last year, projection was 7,345, and on the 10th day it was 7,316. I've had the opportunity, over the past several weeks to interact with local physician, Dr. Jonathan Klein, about forming a partnership to teach our second graders how to swim. Very excited about that. They've identified a couple of schools that they would like to work with, and as a matter of fact, we had a meeting scheduled last Thursday. The weather postponed that, so we're meeting tomorrow morning at 11:30 at the Sportsplex to kind of flesh that out. They have a program similar to that in Greensboro, and we have one over in Rock Hill, so I think it would be a great opportunity for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Regulators, interpretive sign.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Back in April of 2015, the board approved the installation of a regulator interpretive sign, a historic sign like you see throughout the city on our property here at the Board of Education, right near that back sidewalk. The approval was contingent upon OCS reserving the right to review the initial sign and any subsequent changes to the sign. So Sarah Paris is here. She's from the Alliance for Historic Hillsborough, and she will be able to talk to you about the sign and answer any questions you may have. I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Hello, thank
Hi.
you guys for having me. Just to kind of give you guys a background and a sense of how the process unfolded with the development of these signs, and I hope you've gotten a chance to see them, maybe as you've been around town. It started in 2014, and Riverwalk, that's when Riverwalk kind of came about. And there were 10 signs that were placed on Riverwalk, a group of community members, professional experts, people with research backgrounds. It was a real local committee that was involved in the development of these signs. And the people that we brought in to work on the individual signs were experts in the content that was particular to the sign. So folks with interests in history and in science and anything relevant to the topic. The group found funding for these signs. Each sign is about $4,500 per sign. So that cost did come, the group found the money for that sign on their own. And it takes about 18 months to develop each of these signs. So doing the research, doing the design work, coming together to work on draft after draft. And we're really excited about the new round of interpretive signs that we have in place. We have the regulator sign hopefully going in place right out here. We've got one on the pollinator gardens at Gold Park, and then we have one on the Old Town Cemetery. And then we're gonna have another round coming up as well. So really, I'm here to answer questions, any questions that you might have about the regulator sign before we move forward with the fabrication and installation of that sign.
Questions from the board? No questions?
I won't support it. There's
So-
comments, but I won't support it.
So I'll ask the question since
Okay.
it appears to not come out. So the question is, do you have plans to put another sign out that represents other hangings that have occurred in our community?
Not in the immediate future. We do welcome, so the next round of signs, just so you can kind of know what's on our list. There's gonna be a sign at the Okanichi Village, to honor that site. We'd like to do a sign on Joe Berry at Dickerson Chapel, for the one at the Burwell School and Kate's Creek Pollinator Garden. So those are the next.
I'll go ahead and ask my questions now, and they're gonna be blocked.
Yeah, so the question really was here. I mean,
Sure.
this has been known as a historic site where hangings occurred regularly. And the question really is there no plans for acknowledging the other hangings that have occurred here?
Specific to, and would you like to, yeah, that is also on the.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to short circuit the questions.
Historically, the only hangings that occurred at this site were the regulator hangings.
Okay, I
Okay.
wanna follow up on that.
Okay.
Of the individuals that were hung at the regulator site, how many of their families ended up being slave owners?
We didn't do that research. This is pre-colonial.
It
And-
is
and-
pre-colonial, but and I recognize the need to point out that our history was part of that. But the individuals that were hung on that, they came in, and it was the British that gave the land away. But who did they get that land from?
At the time that this occurred, North Carolina was a British colony.
These landowners, who did they get the land from? I don't see that on the plaque.
Well, the landowners, as did all landowners under the British government, got their deeds from British government.
And who did the British government take the land from?
Well, we all
You may
know
jump
that
to
they
the
took
end.
the land from whoever they wanted to take it from.
But who was that? Where is that on the plaque, that that land was taken away from Native Americans? And then the second one is that you're saying that you're gonna have a sign maybe
Sure.
somewhere else to recognize, African Americans that, who were hung, and it was near this area.
Well.
When is that plaque
we-
gonna be
we-
put up?
We do not have any plans whatsoever for that sign.
Okay,
We have plans to have a plaque at the Occoneechee Village
Was it gonna
honoring
say-
the Native Americans
okay.
in the next 2 years.
Mhm.
And we have a plan to honor Reverend Joe Berry, who began the very first school for black people in Hillsborough as soon as the Civil War was over,
Mhm.
which is at Dickerson Chapel,
Okay,
which is where that school took place.
okay.
And we have a plan for a further sign, as Sarah said, for the Burwell School. And that will have on it, it's not developed yet,
Yes.
but that will have on it information about the people of color who worked at the Burwell School, including Elizabeth Keckley.
Okay.
And
Who did
those
the-
people
who
were
did-
slaves.
Yeah, but who did they serve?
Well, Hillsborough is quite remarkable in its history of people of color,
Yes, ma'am.
because Hillsborough had so many free people of color who worked for wages, owned property, and had businesses. But the problem was, in 1835, the state legislature said that free people of color lost certain rights, such as the rights to sue people that owed them money.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when the businesses that were owned by black people in Hillsborough would not get paid, they had no recourse.
Okay. Where's the
So
historic
many of,
sign?
so many of
So-
these,
So, Mr.
so
Roberts,
many
can
of
we?
these businesses
Yes,
left.
I
But
can-
that sign is going to be in the next series, but we have not developed it yet.
Okay, I think you've answered our
You've
questions.
answered our
Are there any other questions, comments from anybody?
Well, I'm just, when you made your opening statement, it sounded like there were more than just the regulator hangings on this particular site, but they were not.
Right, and that was cleared up. That was the concern that I had gotten.
Yeah, well,
So
because
it's been cleared
I've
up.
known Betty Eidner for maybe 40 years. And if Betty Eidner knows her history, and if Betty Eidner says it wasn't, then it wasn't. So has someone cataloged and identified hangings of people of color that took place in Hillsborough from colonial times right up to whatever the latest one was? Has anybody done that?
Not to my knowledge.
There's a commission in Orange County that's working on that.
Oh, they're working on it,
Called
okay.
Okay.
All right.
Orange County Remembrance.
Human rights.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, of which I'm.
Yeah, and I think that would be important to look at that as this work is developed and pay respect to it.
Absolutely.
This is a Holocaust of a different kind.
Yes.
It took time, place over a different period of time, and it should be recognized for what it was. Bad.
All right, do we have a motion?
I motion to approve this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
$4,500 per sign.
Yes, it's a good sign. All right. All right, this next agenda item is really to talk about each board's thoughts on agenda items that we'd like to see for this year. This is really just intended as a brief discussion where we can send our list to Amy, and then Amy will combine those, and we can do kind of ranking like we did last year, based on what Ms. Stevens did.
So we're not sharing them out loud right now?
No,
We're
we
just
can, we
emailing
can.
them?
The intention is just to give some of those so the public can get an idea of some of the items we have. And then that list will be sent to Amy. Amy will combine them, send it back out, and we will put, our top ones on there.
And to be clear, and I'm sorry if I missed something, because Dr. H was saying something to me, this is not necessarily all that the board will talk about this year. These are
Right.
just specific things that we're interested in seeing on the agenda, along with all the other standard business and other things that might come up. So this is not necessarily inclusive of
Right.
anything that might get talked about this year. These are just ideas of things that board members would like to see.
Exactly.
And now, is that in addition to what you had put in the paper that the board was gonna do?
Yeah, all the other items that we've discussed, yes.
Well, I'll
Sorry.
share one, just going off of what Ms. Stevens said earlier about the student achievement data. I think that's incredibly important to look at soon.
Mhm.
DPI has just come out with all of it. It's available on their website if anyone
It
wants to
is.
look at it. I'm interested in looking at that specifically over time, by subgroup, which I think we usually do, but I think, understanding, by subgroup, sort of how that has looked over time. I am, interested in also, that's test score data starting in the 3rd grade, but I wanna understand how we're doing in the earlier grades as well, so to the extent that we're able to also at that point bring in any growth data we might have, or, achievement data for students in K through 2. And I'm very interested to understand, related, but I guess sort of separate, a lot of people I know say, these gaps start before kindergarten, and I would be really interested to understand what we see when kids come into kindergarten, particularly from different, pre-public school experiences before that. So the kids who are coming through, our pre-K programs, or Head Start programs, or at-home care, or whatever the sources are. So we can learn a little bit more, the extent to which that's true, and the extent to which, our own pre-K programs are preparing kids for kindergarten. Those are a couple things on my mind, so in terms of student outcomes.
Dr. H?
Well, for those of us who were at the Student Achievement Committee meeting the other day, the whole presentation, and I want to reiterate to Michelle, we have too many tech failures periodically, and we can't get stuff on the big screens. Please get that out, because there was some very powerful stuff in there.
Yeah, sir, to my knowledge, I thought it was out, so.
You
I'll
might
check
wanna
with
check
Amy
it.
just a little bit and see.
The early identification of children coming into the school system for academically gifted considerations, because that's gonna lead to honors courses, it's gonna lead to international baccalaureate courses at the high school level. What we have is a good presentation, but I think it'd be important for the board to be getting this information. It's just as important as the report that sort of we found troubling at the last meeting with regard to student suspensions. This stuff needs to be analyzed as it evolves during the school year, not just presented in a report at the end of the year. So somehow or other, we need to keep this on our radar screen constantly.
All right.
Now, I'm gonna start kind of following up on what Dr. Akiotis was saying. We have to figure out a way to identify children earlier in elementary school where they'll go into AIG. It's too late when they're in the 8th grade and the child asks to go into Math 1, but then gets concerned that they weren't prepared to go into it ahead of time. But the fact that the child has to ask is the problem. So we've got to identify them sooner, and for the child to have to ask, we've got to figure out a way that we identify them without the child asking. The second one is following up on the need for earlier education. That right now at New Hope, at the kindergarten for our dual language program, we have 6 students on the waiting list for that. And our 1st grade, we have 12 on the waiting list on that, which shows as a program that is well received by our parents. And we also need to take a look, is there other schools that we need to have that at? At Hillsborough Elementary, again, expanding how we get to our children earlier, we have a wait list of 19 kindergarten students at Hillsborough Elementary. We need to figure out how to eliminate that wait list, and where are we gonna find that capacity? On our pre-K, we, roughly, at end of last year, we have 55 students on the pre-K list, and that's not expanding it to a 1 year earlier. We have to figure out where we can get capacity to meet that need so that we can serve those parents on all three of those. And it's that, those are students that we're not serving now for what the parents are asking for.
So I have a couple things that I'm interested in seeing on the agenda. One thing is, the possibility of getting a full-time district translator in here as quickly as possible. Michelle and I had a conversation about that recently, so maybe that'll come back to us sometime soon. I would like to talk about composting and recycling at all of our campus locations, because I feel like we could do that a whole lot better than it's being done system-wide.
I think that's a good one for Dr. H. you to bring as well to the.
Committee?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I know Chapel Hill
We
Carver
can get
City
funding.
schools have been composting since I was in school there. And it seems like with all the farms around here, that could be like a really great match. I'd like to talk about lactation spaces in our schools, having a dedicated small area for that, and how we're gonna advocate for parental leave in the next budget season. I am interested in talking about the historically underutilized business report and really digging into what we're doing about that, because it's just so far below our goal that I feel like we need to be having the conversations as a board around that and what our expectations are. And then another thing I was thinking about is talking about land banking and what the board thinks about that, and how we could direct staff to be working with the towns and the county in order to try to at least go ahead and get a space for another school, because we know that we're gonna need another school sooner than later. And if we wait until we have all the money to build a new school, it concerns me that that process will take a really long time. So I'll stop there. I have some other ones to read.
Can I add on something just
Sure.
to the lactation room piece? Whoever's on that SAPFO committee, Dr. Alkiotis, I don't know if it's still you, but I think we should have that room allocated in the SAPFO, you know, the same way that we're pushing for pre-K spaces to be counted as pre-K, and the different constraints, if we are serious about something like that, which I think would be really beneficial. Buildings have to have space for it, and there isn't space unless we preserve a space the same way we would preserve a restroom. So that's something that perhaps we could.
Well,
add to
the
list.
chair and the vice chair in the collaboration meeting will be dealing with that topic, is what the committee was told
Okay.
at the last meeting in June, because it's supposed to be a topic of discussion at the joint fall meeting between the two school boards and the county commissioners.
Great. So if you all
So
could
they
bring
need to
that
make
one,
sure
that
it
would
gets
be
on
great.
the agenda.
Yep.
But it's not just that one issue. It's
Oh, no,
Oh,
no,
of
it's
course,
it's a
no.
whole
Yeah.
SAPFO
yeah.
Right.
thing, because
Same with that.
the one issue that I'm pushing just to follow up is, we have to get to the county commissioners, because I've spoken to one of them, they have no clue that some of our classrooms are being utilized and we don't get credit for it. So some way or another, SAPFO's wrong, we've got to get it across.
What day is that meeting?
It's the 26th Thursday, 7 to 10.
September 26th? And is it, where is it?
The Whitted Building.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to add another piece, and I think this board has a responsibility to have this discussion. We put things in place years ago that were good things. And then new principals come in, new superintendents come in, new board members come in, and they throw these things out, and they just have a dead eye to them and they disappear. What Dr. Bridges was talking about tonight about teaching second graders to swim that he did in South Hill. Orange County Schools actually did that when the sportsplex opened up many, many years ago. There was a coherent program between the school system and county government and the sportsplex, where kids were bused. I think they may have done it at the third grade level, so that every third grader would learn how to swim. Because the data and the statistics were pretty strong on, plus there was a sense of all private pools were not accepting all children in this county at that time. And the 4-H director, Mary Fanning, brought that evidence forward. So why did that program disappear? Okay? It was a good program. And when Dr. Klein called me about this, I referred him to Dr. Bridges. Dr. Bridges acted up on it immediately. I attended a meeting of this aquatics group. They're very dedicated people. And they wanted to start a program to celebrate and honor the death of a colleague who drowned in the Hudson River back a few months ago from UNC. I think you all saw that. But somehow or other, we have to not allow individuals to dump programs that work. If they were felt important, recycle. Hillary's absolutely right, but I'm gonna tell you, back 20 years ago, there was a strong recycling program in this system. And it was started by Superintendent Bill Harrison. And he sent out a clear message to everybody. And people were recycling because the county was charging us, the town of Hillsborough was emptying the dumpsters. And their rates went up, and the county didn't want to do it. And the kids were the best recyclers in the system. And that faded away. So these issues fade away. And the Orange County Schools was doing very nice work in this area many years ago. And boom, it disappears. So somehow or other, how do things get institutionalized so they don't disappear? I think that with the help of our esteemed attorney here, maybe he can explain that to us at a meeting somewhere, how this would actually happen. Not tonight, thank you.
I'll just comment on the lactation rooms. I mean, it is a legal requirement, sort of absent, sort of like a showing of undue hardship that, you know, we're supposed to provide space. Can't be a bathroom, it must be shielded from view and free from intrusion by coworkers and the public, so, that should
And what we
help
know-
bolster, that should help bolster if you're looking for more space.
And what we know is that if it's not a dedicated space, teachers just make do, because that's what teachers
Right,
do.
right.
That's what they have to do in so many instances. And I feel like this is a way that we can support teachers really efficiently and in a way that will really matter to our parents. And, yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Oh, Cody.
so I wanna get some more information and let the community know in regards to our career and technical education programs and letting them know all the good things that Orange County students are doing as well as the teachers of Orange County schools. So that would be something that I want to see.
Okay, Sarah?
I wanna just name a couple of things that I figure will be on the agenda this year, but just to make sure. So one is our, next strategic plan, since the strategic plan is closing out. I think the board should be involved in that process. Updates on progress towards our equity plan, and just where we are in those efforts in general. I think it's great that we have updates and more discussion in the Student Achievement Committee, but then also plenty of time for board discussion. And then the reassignment process, which I know we postponed for this year, but I really wanna make sure that we have conversation about the engagement process for that, and really what that's gonna look like, what the communication's gonna look like, sort of all along the way. I think that those are probably obvious ones from previous discussions we've had, but I wanted to put them in the list.
Yes,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. I get a turn. I remain concerned about the student reassignment process. I want the process to be fair and equitable. A lot of the community had concerns with it, and so did I, when it started before, and I think we need to do it right this time. And we said this, but it's worth repeating. I am concerned about the opportunity gap. That is what it's being called now, because the achievement gap term is being scrutinized highly. And it's an opportunity gap because some of us didn't get the opportunity as others. So I am concerned about that data that we have, and I'm making certain that we all get it collectively, so that we can have a conversation together, so that we can move forward together. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry. It feels like a committee meeting all of a
Yeah,
sudden,
no,
we're all just chatting. Yeah, I definitely think we need a comprehensive strategy for that, and not just kind of more of the same conversations that I've witnessed in the year I've been on the board, where we kind of look at it by subgroup, and the students that comprise that subgroup, one thing Sarah and I were talking about at one point was like, in some of these schools, like, changing the numbers for subgroup results would be like getting 8 students
Right.
Yeah.
to a new level.
Right.
And so I feel like that's MTSS in a way, but like we also need to look at it in a more comprehensive, and I think there's some room for looking at it in additional ways. And how it, relates to our discipline data, of course, we're all interested in talking about that more also. And then, the last thing on my list was just, one of the things that came out of the Student Achievement Committee meeting, last week it was about the Equity Task Force, and sort of now it is something that is a board policy, what the expectations around that are and how it's going to be perpetuated, and how the members who have historically served on it are going to be brought into the process as we move forward.
Just follow up on one thing Hillary said, when you look at one school and you say there's 8 students that we can shift to change that results of that school, in my opinion, that's missing what we really have to do. We have to shift more than the 8 bubble kids. That we have to have a plan that we raise up every child that is not career or college ready. It's not 8 students, it's every child that's not college and career ready. Just trying to get the 8 kids, in my mind, is not solving the problem.
Well, clearly, I'm not just worried about 8 kids
I
per
know that.
school,
I know
so.
that.
Well,
Just to be clear.
No, the conversation that we had though, so I'll just
Yeah.
clarify this, is if you look at a particular subgroup, Black
In a
students.
particular grade.
In a particular school, in a particular grade, sometimes that's 8 children. 8 children, and not bubble kids, 8 children who are performing below grade level. And when you say it like that, like, we cannot figure out how to get 8 children to proficient, to college career ready, and, you know, and so that's, I think, that's what we meant, not sort of bubble kids, which I. is not a
Having
term
2
I-
children who have been identified as bubble kids, and they bring them in after they do the EOGs, so that they can get those 2 children moved up. I have a problem with identifying and saying it's, and I understand that you're not saying it's at 8, but we have to focus on that whole classroom and identify which classroom is having a problem, and make sure that we get the resources into the classroom at a particular school that's struggling, so that we can bring that whole classroom up, or that whole school up, not kids. But those 8 kids, are they in one classroom, or are they in multiple classrooms? Are we getting the resources down to address every child's needs? Because I have 2 kids that were identified as bubble kids, and they bring them in at the end of the EOGs and say, hey, we'll give you a couple days extra to retake it. They came up, school came up, and that's not solving the problem. But that's what we've been doing since I've been on the board, is that we're saying, hey, we have kids that we can identify and improve our test results. And then if there's another child that's getting a 1, and they choose between one that has a 2, that they can just bump them up to a 3, they're focusing on the one that's 2. They're not even giving that other child an opportunity to come in and retake the test, because they've written that child off. And that sounds negative, but that's what is happening. Thank you, go ahead, thank you.
Part of that is, you've heard the cliche, when the tide comes in, the whole ship rises.
Yes, sir.
And that elevates everybody in the building, hopefully, but that doesn't address these opportunity or achievement gaps that you're talking about, because, you know, using my hands as a kind of a way of doing it, the whole ship rises, but the gap doesn't close, so these students need a little bit more of something.
Yes, sir.
And normally what they need is more time and more help.
Yes, sir.
So when you say to our principals and central office staff, as a board, we're willing to allow you to use resources differently. Because in the absence of that, and keep doing what we've always done, we'll keep getting the same results. So I don't look at resources as just money. I look at resources as information, technology, space, people, if you give schools the flexibility or promote the flexibility to do those things differently, make it a different result. And I think that over time, you'll start addressing the opportunity gaps, and everybody will buy into that. But it'll take that flexibility, because doing what we've always done is gonna net us the same result we've always gotten.
Yes.
Anyone else? All right, from my list, I would like for us to talk about more partnerships with Chapel Hill Schools. I think it was very effective when we approached them, you know, regardless of the topic. You know, I think there's some opportunity there for us to discuss with them and go to the commissioners as a single, here's what we'd like to do as a community. Facilities, I definitely wanna have the discussion about facilities and, our building plans and land banking as well. Communications to our community, I'd love to see us, you know, as we've talked to, many people, being able to talk more about our programs and the individual accomplishments of the teachers, not, you know, at our highest level saying this is what the school district's doing, but more of these smaller programs, whether it's programming at sixth grade or, you know, a teacher teaching a child art. I think all of those are very important for our community to know about. Safety and security, definitely, you know, in closed session and what we can share in the public. I think that's very important, especially as we've learned in some of these rough months about that. I'd like us to talk about school program views, and this is going more to SAFO, where we can present a school not based on capacity, but the programs there, like, hey, you know, for kindergarten, you can only have this much capacity. For first grade, you have this much capacity, and this is how many of those we have. And so when we go to the county commissioners and we have this discussion with them about SAFO, we're going in with the data versus saying, no, you're artificially counting, you know, 20% more capacity in our schools that we have.
Do you intend to take that to them on the 26th?
I would love to. Is that doable? Oh, yeah,
A good way to
No,
do it-
I'd like to hear
I
that,
think a
because-
good way to do it would be to take, maybe not for all 13 schools, but take a sample of an elementary, a middle, and a high school and show
What they have and what we have?
what they currently have and what true capacity would look like if they maintained the specialty programs and you built it out by grade level.
The only, Jay, only reason I have a concern about that is this has been, and I know that this is the department that you're over as far as getting that. But it's time that we actually, particularly at our elementary schools, that's where we have the capacity problem. We, in my opinion, we've got to go down on each elementary school and say, here's what SAFO says, here's how we're actually using every classroom in that facility. Whether it's for a guidance counselor room or, we have some classrooms that are used for, when kids misbehave, they go down and.
In-school
we know-
suspension.
Yeah, okay, I didn't want to say it, but.
That's what it is.
So we need to know what every classroom is being used for, and we need to know our true empty classrooms at every school. Otherwise, if we just take them one, they're gonna say, well, you've got capacity at one of our other schools. We've got to be able to say, this is what this room is being used for. SAFO says if there's room in there, hey, do you want us to have a nurse in that room? Yes or no? Do you want us to have a counselor in that room? Yes or no? Do you want us to have a therapist in that room? Yes or no? That we've got to get it out there. And I've talked to board members, county commissioners. They don't understand that we have rooms that are being utilized and how they're being utilized. But if we only pick one or two schools, they're gonna say, well, you've got rooms in some of the others that you cherry picked.
So
Which one you wanna
I
show.
encourage us not to have this discussion now,
Mhm.
because we have other stuff, but you get the idea. Dr. H, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I do, because the political reality is, the staff knows what's going on, your elected officials may not know, but I'll tell you, the county staff knows.
I agree.
Because back in April, we were told they were gonna take into consideration the fact that some classrooms may only have 4 or 5 severely and profoundly handicapped children in there. They were gonna take into consideration that we had so many classrooms with pre-K kids in there.
Yes, sir.
None of those considerations are being given by
Staff.
the staff,
To the
okay?
commissioners, yes, sir.
Yeah, the commissioners will probably enjoy hearing this, but you gotta get it through the filter, okay?
This is our
And this
chance.
is why
That's
I
the chance.
brought up
Yeah.
the whole thing again, that the next thing was going to collaboration, and then the fall meeting. And, you know, Ronnie Darcy was representing Chapel Hill Carver. Brenda had asked me to represent Orange County Schools, and I did that. But that's the battle, and this has been going on for over a quarter of a century, okay?
Yeah.
Because they're gonna build a $45 million jail.
Yes, sir.
They spend a significant amount of money looking at light rail, okay? They've got financial obligations.
Oh, they're after debt limit.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's just the reality of it.
But my personal opinion, we've got to get our true capacity out to our county commissioners, because with the growth that's going on in Hillsborough and the growth that they're not recognizing in Mebane, we're gonna have to build a new elementary school, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That with what's going on just in Mebane, we have an unassigned area right now, so.
County staff says we don't need a new elementary school till 12 years out. I'm
Well,
just telling you.
why I think we need the land bank is they may not have money to build a new school, but if they can pass, you know, $2 million renovations in a consent agenda, then they can give us a couple $1 million for land.
All right, so next on mine was talking about as well the strategic plan development, teacher and staff. I think, you know, from a budget standpoint, I think, you know, that's an important area. From a CTE standpoint, I did have CTE on here, but mine was really looking at interning opportunities here at Orange County Schools. So I do know a long time ago, there was an opportunity for students over the summer to work with the athletic directors and do maintenance and different activities, and I know that's not occurring anymore, so I think that's a good opportunity for
They
us.
worked at the central office too, as a matter of fact.
I was
Bus garage
told,
too.
paying, yeah, and that's what I'm saying, is all of these opportunities, I think we should consider. I did have on mine as well, the equity committee and seeing the charter, because we haven't had one. I don't think there's one defined. I'd like to see it and make sure we all understand what it means and getting
You mean
on the
the
committee.
equity committee, you don't mean task
The
force?
task force, I'm sorry, the task force, and talking about, you know, what their charter is, how people get on and off, how, you know, what their expectations are. Just a charter like we have for all of our other items. And then also, our next phase in equity planning. So as we look at our budget and look at, what items Dr. Keeling has for us, where we go next. It's gonna be a ongoing journey. All right, that's my short list of items. Anybody else?
Somebody's recorded all of this, right?
No, you're gonna email it back. Yeah, there was no dictation or,
All right, well, we
Actually, I saw Dr. Bridges take.
And then it'll be put in the
I was
spreadsheet
watching
over
Dr.
time.
Bridges take copious notes.
I got
So
them
do
all
you want
down,
us
but
to
I
email
probably
it
got them
seriously?
wrong.
Yeah, so,
Okay,
so,
alright.
Make it easier
so
for
Amy's
Amy.
going to put it in the spreadsheet for
Okay.
us, and then we can,
Oh, so
Okay.
she's gonna email it to us and we'll update the file? Is that what you mean?
no, you email it to her, she's
Okay,
gonna take
okay,
all of
very
ours and
good.
put it in a single
Very
spreadsheet.
good.
All right?
Well, could I just ask, for the sake of clarity, if Dr. Bridges could have Amy share with us what he wrote down?
Sure.
And I just think that would be helpful.
Okay, give me a starter list.
Yeah,
Okay,
whatever
I
you
can do
wanna
that.
call it is fine with me.
Dr. Bridges, the swimming thing, I am so happy to hear you bringing that in. I had a child that was with us this past weekend that in middle school that I was scared to death. They need it. Thank you.
I think it'll go.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on this item? All right, last item is to adjourn. Do we have a motion?
No,
No,
you're
no,
right.
we're not
Oh,
doing that.
closed session.
So what you need is just a motion to return to closed session for the items previously stated and on the printed agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll take a 10-minute recess so we can